the life force of your bond. A power like life itself, unseen for generations. A dyad in the force.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Dyad in the Force. I am Element, along with my co-host, Chopper. How's it going, Choco?
I'm doing all right. Just, living. It's busy at work. All right, my brain is not what it should be.
Oh yeah. I mean, we have some of that over here as well. We gotta get ready to release something big in the next 2 weeks. But this is episode 150, the big old 150, and we're gonna use this episode as kind of like a decompression episode, a chill episode. We're gonna talk with you guys in the chat. We're also going to have an ongoing conversation of bringing the Old Republic into canon. What kind of stories can we tell? What people could we cast if we have any returning or characters reprising their Legends counterparts. And we have some great conversations ahead for us. But to start things off with some news, Rey's new Jedi Order is not filming in April 7th, 2024. Which I can say with confidence was never the case to begin with. Because... have you ever used Production List?
No, you don't use it. Yes, in this era of content creation, it's really... people want to be the first to break news because then you get clicks and whatnot. But the problem comes with you end up digging for stuff and jumping at shadows and things that just aren't there. And then, of course, it's not going to film. It's not... Is everything okay?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, of course it's not going to film. They don't even have a script yet. Like, Daisy really has not been given a script. That's something that she has said that we do know. And so, like, it's obviously not going to happen. But when we complain about these random things, it starts to pile up and feel like a lot. People are like, oh, man, they keep missing with all their projects and all this stuff. But none of these things that people are complaining about were ever officially announced in any capacity. I don't know. It's irritating.
Yeah, and just to kind of like really quickly touch on my latest video, like going off of someone who has zero credibility and has zero verifiable source whatsoever, who's saying, my guess is that Lucasfilm is, running around like headless chickens, and you just like, and then you're like reporting, I have an update, guys. This guy says Lucasfilm has no direction. And I'm just like, who is that guy? Do they know?
Well, why is he talking?
Yeah. And also, the title, The New Jedi Order, in and of itself is a friggin' direction. She's literally building a new Jedi Order. That's all they kind of need as a direction.
Well, what's more is she's like, yeah, she took a look and was surprised at the direction it was going, which implies there's a direction. I don't know. I can't.
I actually think it's not what I expected. Kate was like, in context, was about the reception at Celebration. To the announcement.
Could have been, yeah. Could have been. I read it as, as the person who's embodied the character probably had an idea of where they thought that character would be, and the story was just not about that at all, even if it was in that direction. So, like, I took it to mean maybe in the story maybe the movie follows like Padawans in this order, and it's not about Rey. She's just the Grand Master of it. You know, could be something like that. She's like, oh, it's not what I expected, but it sounds super cool and exciting. You know,
Yeah. It actually
there's a lot of possibilities. But
it actually kind of sounds like a more tactful way of saying I disagree with everything you think about this character. Oh man, could you imagine like a couple years down the line where the only way they could trash New Jedi Order is to say even Daisy Ridley herself said it's not what I expected. It's like, oh, you're taking Daisy Ridley's side now.
I mean, that day is coming.
I just know that, man, I am sick and tired of I'm sick and tired of them, of that side of the fandom, like grasping at straws and trying so desperately to have their cake, because they've not had it in such a long time. There's no infighting in Lucasfilm, as you said earlier. Kathleen Kennedy, after 6 years, is still there. You know, Mark Hamill has since come out and said I shouldn't have, you know, spoken my creative license in public because, you know, disagreements happen on set. He disagreed with George Lucas. You know, if you go to the old interviews, he was like, I really think that Luke should have fallen to the dark side. He was wearing dark clothes and everything, and George Lucas was like, no. Especially since it was titled Revenge of the Jedi.
Luke Skywalker also disagreed with the name Luke Skywalker.
Yeah.
I always think that's funny.
But starting off with the chat really quickly, before we cover other news, because we have some other news. Do you guys have a favorite Mandalorian in canon or Legends? And I'll do this really quickly. My favorite, I mean, there's only a couple. First of all, I hate Cantankerous, as I call him. I know someone personally, shout out to her, that likes him. But you know, I was never really a big fan of the Mandalorians in the Old Republic, but I did kind of simp for Shay. And in the canon side, Sabine is hands down my favorite Mandalorian.
It's Sabine for sure. I've always been a massive Sabine fan, like, forever. So this was not planned out, you know. It's not something Pep and I don't think have ever really talked about. In Legends, I'm kind of leaning towards the relationship that Jaina had with I believe it was Smirta Gev, was cool. They were just like cool girls doing their thing. And she helped train Jaina how to be a Mandalorian, so that she could learn how to fight Jedi, because that's something Jedi don't ever learn. And it's actually kind of funny because this harkens back to an old debate, but basically they made fun of Jaina because she doesn't know how to fight with a sword, because she's only used a lightsaber. Mm-hmm. And lightsabers don't behave like swords, so they had to train her how to fight with a sword. But there's always been debate of it's a hot stick. It's a hot stick.
I mean, it is more akin to a stick. You know, all sides of it are lethal. Whereas a sword, you need to index the blade. But you know what's funny is like I'm recalling my old beef with Big Bang Mike. When he challenged him to come to his studio or his dojo, and in that very video, he's like, "We can have this debate in my dojo. I'll fight you with the sword." And he does like this whole like fencing thing, and then He goes, and then you can treat it as a stick. And then he spins it like a lightsaber. I'm like, that's ironic. Shout out to Conspiracy Cantina in the house. Shout out to Darthman86, member, Dyad member for 18 months on YouTube. Did not do this last week. Hello there. Or hello there.
Also, Jedi Master DePaul, I really enjoyed your just talking video, your rant, because you like expressed a lot of the things I've been feeling in the fandom as of late, and it's been one of the many things kind of hold me back, but it feels like I've been treading water for a minute and need to figure a way to get out of it and move forward, which I think we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, there are some points I disagree with, and that's where I said I would love to come on the podcast and talk to you. The thing that keeps me moving forward is the very quotes. You're not part of the problem does not mean you're therefore part of the solution. And so this is why I keep going. This is why I keep calling people out and trying to either correct misinformation or avoid disinformation.
Yeah. And to be clear, I'm never going to stop doing that either. I don't expect it to change the hearts of some of these dumb people, but yeah. I do like to do it as a to cull my following, yeah. and B, there's a lot of people who look for a safe haven from that sort of thing, and so I think it's a way to stand out as a lighthouse. But there are certain things that I'm definitely going to be scaling back on for sure.
Dyad moment, like the lighthouse idea is perfectly like what I am like envisioning. Is like my attempts to call out misinformation and disinformation is not to convince those people, but rather to give, if I can reach just one person who would have landed on that video and be like, huh, and then saw my call out and we were like, actually that makes a lot more sense, then mission accomplished. Shout out to Psycho Shinobi, the best shinobi in the world. Hello boyos. I don't think the title of Mandalore is canon, at least not yet. It actually is. When Bo-Katan is reading the plaque at the Living Waters, she does say Mandalore. Is Tar Vizsla the ultimate? No. What did she?
My mind went to the ultimate, but I don't recall if I read that or if that's just my own headcanon.
She did.
Mandalore the flatulent.
Yeah, Bo-Katan did read a plaque saying Tar Vizsla was Mandalore the something. I don't remember. I'd have to watch it again, but it was Mandalore.
Do you think, and if we can go back to the Old Republic, do you think we might experience the first Night Sisters to cross over?
Yes.
Because I just think that would be sweet if they're new and they don't understand how this galaxy works and have to find their own place in it. I think that could be interesting to have inside of the story.
Yeah. Let's see here. Do you shout out to Faust in the TikTok chat. My best friend ignored me because I proved that there is no great Jedi. Right on. I actually, I started reading Fate just to kind of. There's something that comes out to me or pops out to me. Comes out. Jesus. In Omen.
In Fate of the Jedi?
Yeah, in Omen. So Ben's recalling his experience on Ziost, and how you know he used to think that the Force was merely a tool, and that you know just like a blaster, it's not inherently light or dark. It's the user that kind of makes that decision. And you know Luke has some pretty damning words for him, which is to say, for a Jedi, there is no place for a rainbow force. Luke said quietly, "There's no room for compromise. We walk the path of the light side, or we fall to the dark side, to the darkness. There's no gray area, Ben."
It's been a hot minute. I gotta go back and reread. There were some banger lines in those books, but
I mean, if you're looking for a very explicit line about there is no gray, even in Legends, that's it right there. And in the case for the other definition, it's only mentioned once by Tyvoka in the Great Hyperspace War, or the Stark Hyperspace War, where he's like, "Oh, Qui-Gon, you know, you're never gonna get him to agree with anything. He's very stubborn. You know, some people would call him a gray Jedi." And that's the only time it's actually explicitly named a gray Jedi. But that's for his, you know, maverick thinking. But in terms of light and dark, Luke is pretty explicit there.
it's just never gonna happen.
Yeah.
But it is funny. It has been humorous watching people iteratively come up with new definitions to try and make it fit.
One of the new definitions is like you still serve the light, but you don't follow the dogma of the Jedi. And I'm like, so what does that make you? Are you still a Jedi? If you never joined the Jedi Order, how are you any iteration of a Jedi? Like, if people want to be like, I want to be a Grey Knight, that's cool, boss. You have at it. You know. Psycho Shinobi says another huge problem with Grey Jedi on social media is the misconception of what a Grey Jedi is in Legends. Correct. Faust asks, who is your all-time favorite Sith in Legends? Mine is Exar Kun. It's Malgus for me.
Damn it.
Don't say Darth Barris. Oh man, that gif just keeps on coming back to me.
I gotta go with Bane. Yeah. I love those books, but then also part of me comes back to Sidious as well. Sidious is a beast. I think he's underrated. He's very underrated just in general. No, Vitious my favorite, but
here's why. Really quickly, to interject. Darth Sidious is underrated in the fact that he's only seen dueling Maul, Savage, and Windu, and Yoda. Whereas, like, in the Old Republic, all of the Sith Lords pretty much, like, they have their cinematics, and they have, like, all these displays of, like, what's in the Bane book, like, you know, he's like dueling Rain.
That was sick. That was a sick moment. But also now I can't think of that moment without picturing Hinata like under a waterfall.
Yeah, there's just so many instances of like the Old Republic Sith being like badasses, and our overarching perspective of Sidious is like hooded and then like lightning, right? And it doesn't come off as like a Malgus who towers over people and sacks the Jedi Temple. But yeah, like Choco said, Sidious is a beast.
The thing about Sidious is, for Sidious, you have to read between the lines, and I think that might be why I like him so much. But like specifically for Sidious, when you watch the Clone Wars and you watch how his plans are almost falling apart all the time, and he's having to like scramble to stop Padme from ruining it, or someone from discovering this thing over here, he stops being this overarching evil that's perfect and everything was always planned, and he becomes a person who's actively like, who has to work hard in order to plan all of this stuff out. And you're like, well, then how hard has he been working, and for how long? And then you read Then Fall Sidious, and in that he talks about like, it's like, homie, like, I ain't no chosen one. I wasn't born as a virgin in the Force. Like, I had to do all this stuff for me. You know what I mean? He's like an evil Rock Lee who made it happen. You know what I mean? Like, it was just him. And he didn't get training from a giant organization or to go off on these missions. He had to do all of this stuff by himself, largely. I don't know. It's impressive.
Kind of brings me back to I forget which book it was in, but like there was a scene in the Jedi Temple where a bunch of them were training, and then Anakin walked in, and one of them went, "Oh my god." That guy. But it's true. Like, I mean, like just from it's basically like on paper an affirmation that like the chosen one thing just like gets on people's. It's like, oh man, he's the chosen one. Just like Harry Potter, when like everyone, when Draco is like, "You're the chosen one." It's like, I'm stronger than you. But yeah, it's.
So it's like Neji on Naruto.
K-Stanzi says Darth Talon for two reasons, for 3 reasons. Actually, let me ask you. This is an important question. Do you count the Badonkadonk as 2 because of cheeks, or 1 because of booty?
I count it as 1 because of booty, because a booty's a unit, you know. like you.
Especially
I'll
some
stop there.
Especially some units.
It's enjoyed as a unit. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's not one that you can enjoy anywhere near as much independently.
Pep, you're quiet compared to Chocolate. Am I quiet? Am I coming through quiet on this right now? Ryan, the podcast today is all about the chat. Although we are kind of having an ongoing conversation about the Old Republic. Let's see here. Faust says, okay then, Tulak Horde and Ragnos, and also Nagasado. That's a lot. I mean, that's practically all. I'm just kidding. That's not all of them. That's a lot of them. Oh, wait! Oh, man, I completely forgot. Malgus is 2. Number 1 is Mar.
Yeah, Darth Maul is really cool.
And then Stacey says, just kidding, my favorite Sith is Abeloth. You know, Abeloth is a Sith.
Get out.
Never heard someone say it's enjoyed as a unit. Well, you know, chalk that up to Choco's quotes of the day.
Yeah, it's because you don't hang around people who are right as often.
Daxton said, I just can't accept Sidious. He was so selfish. Even the Sith Order was like, dude, you gotta share. He just took his toys and went home.
but that's the pinnacle of what their belief is. He was the tip of the spear.
Yeah. Faust says Frieden Nad. Well, are you just gonna keep naming all of them? Like, who is your favorite Sith? Um, you know, when it comes to the Great Jedi conversation, a lot of people bring up Vectus, and I'm just like, I think my simplest explanation for Vectus is you just study the dark side like religiously. I don't think he ever had a chance to utilize it.
No, okay. So with Darth Vectus, and this thing that kills me is we don't know anything about his time as a Sith. We know nothing about it. All right, we know that he was a Sith and that he stopped and was like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, he is a throwaway character in the background of one, maybe two of the Legacy of the Force books, where what's her name, Lady Lumia, was like hiding in his mansion or whatever, and then his like spirit was like tormenting this Jedi who was sneaking through it. And so we get little tidbits of a story, but it's mostly of his life before being a Sith, and then he decided to come home and not do anything anymore. But we don't know anything about his time as a Sith.
Yeah, imagine Obi-Wan as a dark side user, he would slap. Bro. Imagine Yoda as a dark side user. Legacy of Naboo's favorite is Ventress. Daxon says, to me, Bane made the rule of two as a way for one selfish guy to not die and take all the knowledge of the Sith with him. But he did. Oh, but he did die. I mean, go for it.
He realized the largest weakness of the Sith and why the Sith, as they were incapable of taking out the Jedi Order. You know what I mean? Like the Jedi were like they were like the San Antonio Spurs. You know what I mean? They had all the fundamentals. You know what I mean? And the Sith, a team of ball hogs, all trying to take the shot. All now they're stealing the ball from each other to shoot and stuff. You can't win a game, even if all of them are better players. They can't play as a team.
You're fantastic at metaphors. Because like a team full of ball hogs, they'll break some ankles. They'll dunk over some people, right? They'll posterize.
Look at some highlights.
And largely in the history of Star Wars, the Sith, they'll dunk on some people. They'll kill a lot of really great Jedi, but then they still lose. They still lost the game. Shout out to Eric the Dadalorian. Who are you talking about? We're talking about a lot of things, really. Let's see here. Cub costs. Oh wait, no. Ryan really quickly asks, do you think we will ever have Star Wars Eclipse? Probably not at this point. But we don't have any official information on it, so I'm not gonna be like, we have a huge update, guys.
Well, I mean, isn't what I feel like the trailer that we got was one of those things that are meant to attract talent to their team, and I'm sure it attracted a lot of people, and then they fell apart immediately afterwards, and then came out as like a terrible place to work. And so I don't know, I can't see them as without significant trouble getting a proper group of people together to make, said game. And believe it or not, games are not something you can just throw people at. You need specific and talented people to make a good game.
Yeah. Cub Coast asks, if Lucasfilm came to you and said, pitch a new Star Wars show, what's your pitch? We've done this a lot of times.
Yeah, that's why I always try to come up with a different idea.
We'll think on that, Cub Coast. Let's see here.
Well, I mean, I do have one where just give me a heist show. Give me something like a Leverage, but inside the Star Wars universe, where you have this ragtag group that has to come together and like, this could be in a time where, like, the Jedi are gone. We can't rely on them or Force sensitive or anyone else to come for help. What do we have? And there's a ragtag group where you have a former Mandalorian. This person's a bounty hunter. This person does this, and they run heists in the galaxy for the little guy.
Yeah. Honestly, I think if I were to think of something new, man, I'm a huge freaking simp for the Force. I would actually make a kind of like a castaway of somebody who is discovering the Force for the first time, but they have no guidance on it, right? In Castaway, not in the fact that they're secluded, but Castaway in the fact that they're largely isolated from the larger machine that includes the Jedi Order, the Sith, and everything. And it's like this small island or small planet, civilization where they're largely isolated from that information machine, and this one person in the entire village like stumbles upon the Force and has to deal with the societal dynamics and the social dynamics of dealing with the darkness temptation, learning about all of their upper limits as to how they can command the Force, and just that small intimate story within that village of like how people are affected by him or them, how they are affected by it, and overall what their outcome is. It could be either way. I just want to see how does someone deal with this larger than life Force with zero guidance from anyone. Like, no one comes in and finds them like, oh, you would be a Jedi, or you should be a Sith, use your anger. Like, somebody that has to deal with the ramifications of such on their own.
That'd be cool. I would like to toss one more out there. Give me an animated young Starbrand show. Give me them as teenagers growing up together as a 3-man friend group, but they go through the ups and downs of going from younglings to Padawans inside of the Jedi Order. They're going to classes. You run into Ty Yorick and like her friend who turned to the dark side, and like, because we don't spend anywhere near enough time with Jedi that are young and still at the temple. I'm picturing something like a Young Jedi. Remember the cartoon X-Men Evolution?
Yeah.
So yeah, it'd be similar Young Jedi Adventures, but everyone's older, like they're teenagers or about to cross over. They're they're burgeoning thruple.
Let's see here. Does Yoda keep the voice as a Sith because terrifying? I think didn't they had a voice in the Force planet.
Dark Rendezvous. Yeah, that too.
Although if I were to kind of create or take creative license, it would be kind of like a Gollum effect. It's like, looking, found someone you have, and then it would go, looking, found someone you have. What would Yoda's Darth name be? Darth Goblin.
um, yeah, I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
Aaron says, thoughts on Mandalorian Season 4 being a movie instead of a series. Do we have that official confirmation?
I've heard the speculation. I haven't not seen that in any official capacity. But if they wanted to make it into a movie, you know, I mean, I almost felt like this would be Dave Filoni's movie. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of what it's Dave Filoni's Heir to the Empire Mandoverse movie might very well just be season 4. But this is not an unusual thing. This happens in anime all the time, where you'll have a season that's just a movie.
I honestly think they need a season 4 before the movie. I don't think they could. They realistically could. Like, nothing's stopping them from doing it. But from a narrative standpoint, I think Thrawn making it back to the galaxy and onto Dathomir is not enough to set up a movie yet.
Yeah.
Because I feel like we need to set up the implications of his return and how people feel about it. And, you know, what the new...
And we need to set it up in the movie. You know, we need...
Yeah.
We need to be able to function self-contained, where you see what the imminent threat is, and yeah.
If they made a movie, that'd be fine as long as the story is dope. Also, I want another Star Wars movie. It's been a while since the last one. But I feel like this is the direction they're going in, which I appreciate, because I don't like trilogies. Trilogies are very hamstring. They hamstring storytelling.
Yeah. I do have a question. I was going to make a video on this, you know, today, and I ended up not doing it. But what was it last week? Bob Iger at the shareholders meeting mentioned, you know, they're going to focus more on storytelling before any messages, and on being creative, you know. And I was curious on your thoughts on that. He was saying this about Disney as a whole.
I think Bob Iger's going to say what Bob Iger's going to say. I don't think that's going to have any real creative effect on the products. I mean, essentially, I always fall back on the notion that the executives will say what they want to please the investors and create this kind of air of security for the company. But ultimately, it comes down to the creatives. Like, yes, execs will greenlight projects and will control, you know, that lever should they use it. But ultimately, if that lever is used and they greenlight a project, it comes down to the creatives to actually, you know, execute on that message, that theme, and the story that they need to tell. So, you know, I think a lot of directors and a lot of writers. First of all, we need a writer's room for anything. Because there's no single writer that's going to account for a multitude of perspectives and experiences. And I say this all the time with like multicultural stories in just movies in general. Like, you can't have one white person write a story about Asians, and on the other side, you can't have one Asian writing a story about Asians, because there's a whole different there's just several different kinds of Asians. So it's like you need a writer's room filled with a multicultural outlook to write for those perspectives and experiences. And you know, again, I'm like going off on a tangent in the writer's room, but essentially, like, Bob Iger is going to say what he's going to say. But my motorcycle's going to do what his motorcycle's going to do. And yeah, it's up to the creatives at this point.
Yeah, no, I'm largely in agreement. That's just something he said to appease the weird people always complaining about being woke or whatever. Because like a couple things come to mind instantly. One, wasn't Bob Iger the guy just strong-arming all the creatives in the industry?
Yeah.
He was gonna wait till they all were homeless because he wants to like put AI and have AI doing the writing. He doesn't care about the creative. Flat out is what I'll say. And then on top of that, like the idea of not having a message. All the best stories are ones that the creative person has something to say, and this is their outlet. That's what drives the passion in the storytelling and makes it a good story. Without that, we end up with art by committee. That's the problem, you know. And I trying to infuse storytelling with a positive message is the core of what all Disney movies have always done since the very beginning. You know what I mean? If you watch Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, there's a message in there, you know? Yeah. So to me, it was just really odd news overall, but whatever.
Legacy Nibu says, good stories always have messages. I think crafting a story around a message can be tricky. I mean, it's essentially how a story is crafted, though. You know, at the very fundamental of creative writing and storytelling is a character's arc. You figure out where they start, where they end up, and how they get there. And that, you know, that's the most basic of frameworks. But the character's arc, how they get there, where they start, is a message in and of itself. Just like the coming of age tales is a message of whatever that person goes through in that coming of age.
I mean, what was the message of the original trilogy?
At this point, I don't know. Just kidding.
No, I mean, I love how at the end we get the message that
there's hope for me.
Yeah, it's hope. It's the decision to do better. You can always make a choice to do better. It's to not become in fighting against a monster, to become that monster. And it's that, you know, love is the most powerful conquering force. But you still have to fight for things. You know, they still did. But these are all messages that are inherent in the storytelling, you know?
Yep. Benali says, in a machine like Disney, though, how much power do creatives have?
That's a good question.
They have as much power as they're given, and as unsatisfactory of an answer that's the answer, because execs will greenlight a project. They will, and the executive power comes at hiring whoever they want to hire to tell that story, and that's a lot of power. You can either hire Zack Snyder, or you can hire someone who has more to say in a story. But at the end of the day, like, the execs greenlight the project. They hire the people to tell that story. And from my little knowledge of being a PA for a short amount of time, like, they would send dailies to the EPs, and the EPs would give their notes. But how much the director kind of caves to execs is another factor.
Yeah. Also, hi Benali. I was going to see you in the chat.
One family's issues can be an entire galaxy's problem. Exactly. But I mean, that's where we land on it. Big Chris ATX says, I don't know. Execs interjected in Solo and Rogue One. I don't think we have any explicit instances of them doing this. I know that there was a directorial issue and Ron Howard had to step in for Solo, but as to the larger question of how they interjected is, I don't have any information on.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if there's an overall vision for it and the director or whatever, it refuses to make a product in line with their vision, that definitely does happen.
Yeah, I mean, it happens a lot in the MCU too. I mean, a lot of directors have. Who's the most famous example? Ant-Man.
Ant-Man for sure. Yeah.
He had a story to tell, and the execs had a different vision. I mean, Kevin Feige specifically. But that's largely the creative license. That's the degree of license you give up in trying to tell a story from a connected universe, and that's kind of like the pros and cons of a connected universe versus creating a movie that lives entirely on its own. Which brings me to like the MonsterVerse. It's getting spicy. And I started watching Monarch, which led me to wanting an Old Republic movie called The Grand Master, starring Anna Sawai as young Satele and Idris Elba as Khausen Dark.
So what is that show, the Monarch? I don't know what it is.
So Monarch Legacy of the Monsters is a tie-in show to the MonsterVerse. The story takes place immediately after G-Day, which is the first Godzilla, and it follows Anna Sawai playing Kate and the search for her father, who their father was like happened upon like Monarch research. And so there's a trail of clues for them to follow to kind of like figure out what Monarch knows, the underlying universe of monsters, discovering them, and just to kind of clear up some misconceptions, Godzilla's in it. I mean, it's not like one of those. It's not like Gotham, where like the subject matter is Batman, but you don't really get Batman. In Monarch, it is a tie-in show for sure, and Godzilla's not the main character, but Godzilla's in it. Like, he's the freaking king of the monsters. You can't really do a show without the king of the monsters, about monsters. You know what I mean? But it's a really good show.
I do like that. That because that is the show where Kurt and Wyatt Russell play the same character in different time periods,
It works. Like when they smile,
cool.
you're like, damn. I mean, if he got one thing from his dad, that's his smile. It's the Kurt Russell smile.
But can he make his cheek shake like Kurt Russell? That's the real question.
We'll have to see. The show's ongoing. But
And it's got Kiersey Clemens. I'm in.
It's but it led me to the Old Republic with Satele Shan and Khausen Darak, because like I've always wanted a canon story of her, but it made me rethink my like, oh, I want a canon story of her as the Grandmaster. But this one, making her young and training under Khausen Darak, it gives us an opportunity to set up for the battle on Alderaan. You know, because just like Qui-Gon, Khausen eats it. I forget their names. The Sith that attacked when the Sith Empire returned. Darth.
I was wondering why I knew Anna Sawai. She was the person that was like Han's adopted daughter in Fast 9, right?
Yeah. She's hot.
I'm just remembering watching that movie with you, and the scene where she comes up on the roof of the car with a big giant gun, and I'm like, talks her back and being like, something unlocked. I don't know.
But yeah, I mean, that's essentially what I get from that show. I mean, what do you think of Idris Elba as Khausen Darak?
More importantly, there's not a goddamn thing I wouldn't watch Idris Elba do. So like, yeah. Especially recently playing through the Cyberpunk Phantom Liberty. I think he did a phenomenal job in that. And if you haven't seen Luther, everyone should see Luther. It's amazing. Yeah, he could do no wrong. So I'm in.
I haven't seen Luther. I should probably give that a go.
Oh, it's so good.
I'll give Luther a go if you give Monarch a go. I think they're on episode 6 right now.
I'm in.
But to switch gears to open dialogue, if anybody in the chat has any questions, or if they want to talk about anything, feel free to drop a line. We'll talk about it. But to kind of bring us back to some news and updates, to kind of just like, I guess, fill the air, we're getting a Mace Windu book. It's called The Glass Abyss. And my first thought with The Glass Abyss is we're getting a canon Shatterpoint.
Agreed. I mean, well, my first thought was Glass Onion. And then my mind spiraled down a weird rabbit hole. But it come back and, yeah, no, I think we're going to spend time with that concept in canon. And I love that we can explore, because he's finishing one of Qui-Gon's missions in this book. So I think we get to really see the differences in the mindset between the two characters, and you know where each of them truly land on things. So I think there's a lot of misconceptions around that.
Do you think in an effort for them to kind of course correct, and I use that word sparingly, in an effort to course correct a lot of people's racially motivated hate for Mace Windu, they're gonna have like a lot of like lauding in this book? Because I know in the books that we get, in the several books we get with Anakin, it's always like, oh man, he hates me. But like, do you think like, do we have a timeline as to like what mission he's helping finish? Because no, it's not.
We really don't know, because this could potentially be an ongoing thing with Qui-Gon, or something that comes back a few years later and someone needs to step in and finish it, but Qui-Gon's has already passed away. This could really still come from any time period.
Yeah. Ooh. You think nah, never mind. I was like, you think he comes back as a voice in the living force, and teaches Mace how to retain his identity. Do you think he goes to Mace first, or does he go to Yoda first? If that's a possibility that he might try to teach Mace.
Well, what's interesting is it seemed like he had the most disagreements with Yoda specifically. And so while they both kind of have friendly grandpa air, it is possible that he went to someone else first.
No, because we need that kind of like we do kind of need that in universe of like, shout out to Cal4 in the chat, friend of the channel. He's going to be streaming after this. We do kind of need that in universe of how do we hear Mace's voice, or any of the voices that weren't specifically trained by Yoda, because we hear Ayla, we hear Mace, and we know that the underlying criteria is light in your heart to retain your identity and selflessness. But it took training to recorporealize into a ghost. So I'm wondering if Qui-Gon visited Mace first for this mission, did Mace see it at first like Yoda did, and he was scared of the implications and never finished? Because you remember how Mace reacted to Yoda hearing the voices. So this could be the dark side.
Yeah, it could be interesting. There's a lot of possibilities, but once it does kind of feel like once someone knows, they've been able to go around the force with a butterfly net, catching people. And once they have, the basics of it, there's no reason they can't continue to train themselves. Like, we know Qui-Gon at first could not corporealize, and then eventually learned how to. So over that time period, I don't know.
It's interesting. I think the larger implication here is, the use of the glass abyss, and I feel like the number one thing that's going to come out of this is Mace's Shatterpoint.
Mace's Shatterpoint, and then his true feelings about the Jedi, the Republic, politicians, and things.
Yeah.
Because that to me is the most misunderstood. Like, he is the least political of all the Jedi. He's the most likely to be like, why don't we just beat them all up? Like, I don't want to deal with this mess,
What's one thing you want most of all to come out of this book? And I'll start really quickly just to kind of get your juices flowing. I think the one thing I want to come out of this book is an explicit explanation from Mace on what Vapad is to him. And I want him to explicitly say, I am not walking the path of the dark with this form.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much exactly what I was going to say. I'm just like, I am not like, just because I'm black does not mean I use the dark side. um, but in all seriousness, you know, like, no, he's not using the dark side. No, purple lightsaber doesn't mean use the dark side. Like, you know, but I also want to. My hope is that this mission takes place at some point before episode 2, but like closer towards the end of it. You know what I mean? Like, I hope that he has seen Anakin growing during the years, and I want to get his internal thoughts on, I see a kid here who could be great, but he's reckless and it's dangerous. He could very easily fall down into a dark hole and not have the tools to get out. That's what I want.
So you see this book as kind of like a post-mortem Qui-Gon's mission. Like, he was on it, but like dying kind of left it unfinished, and that's why he's finishing it.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. There's always the possibility that, like, it's before the prequels and Qui-Gon's like, I need your help finishing this mission. I have to go check out aversions in the Force. Okay. I'll do that for you, motherfucker.
No, that's true. But like, in my head, it could be like, you know, Yoda's like, someone is trying to contact Qui-Gon. Go see what it is. And then he goes out, and it's like Pax and Rahara, and they're like, oh yeah, he did.
Nedrick says, this is a very small thing a lot of people don't know, but I'd like an explanation on his different saber in the Phantom Menace.
I want to know why he was a different person briefly in the Phantom Menace. No, they've since gone back and edited that out, but it was always so funny that there was just a random black dude. They're like, yeah, we couldn't get him this day, so we had this guy.
Yeah, the Face Windu conspiracy. No, I think that's an interesting thing. I mean, I think largely they're doubling down on just the sanctity of the Kyber crystal. You know, I think what's, if they are going to explore it, it's just going to be you know, he got his crystal and it turned purple. Calfor says, I swear it's still unedited on Disney Plus. It's unedited. I don't think they ever fixed it.
Oh, it is? Okay, I could have sworn they. That's awesome.
Was there ever an edition where they fixed it? I've always, in all of my rewatches of the Phantom Menace, it's always some rando black dude.
I feel like I remember looking for it in my most recent watch through and not seeing it there, but I may have just missed it.
It could be Mandela effect, because he does, like, when they have the conversation with the senator, he's there, but then as they're walking down the, what's it called, the promenade, it's just a random dude.
Just a random dude walking with Plo Koon and stuff. Like,
oh man, what else do we got? We also got the return of the High Republic Adventures with Daniel Jose Older. Phase 3 is a slow start for me, and not for any reason that it is slow. It's just freaking busier than ever before. The start of Phase 1, where I literally read the Letter of the Jedi in 4 hours. I was unemployed and had nothing going on in my life.
That's what I was gonna say. It was very different times.
Yeah. You had the pandemic. You had nothing but to like watch Star Wars and read books. There's several books that I have not finished yet, and I mean, I still gotta finish Eye of Darkness. I really do.
Oh man, yeah, you do.
it's tough for me because I've committed myself to doing the chapter by chapter breakdown of Revan. And I'm also reading Fate of the Jedi because I really need to kind of armor myself against that crowd. It's a horrible reason to do so, but I still gotta do it anyway. And
I mean, I may recommend going through Legacy of the Force first, but considering what we may end up getting with Ahsoka, then I get what you're saying.
Yeah. Batosai, the Manslayer. Hitokiri Batosai says, "Hello guys, Darth Choco, how did the research go on the minimum amount of midichlorians to use a Force? Did you find more context on it?"
Not quite yet. I have, man, working in like the financial industry at the end of the year when it's RMD season is tough, and it takes your entire brain power to keep up. But I am committed to doing quite a few things with my what's it called, book with a big red book, because I need to get, honestly, I'm going to try to find a way to convert all of it to text that I could have searchable. I was looking to see if someone else has already done it, but that might be a project for me, because I've already gone through that entire book cover to cover. But then people ask a question and I'm like, oh, I usually remember exactly where things are, but I just can't with that book. I don't know why.
The easiest way you could do that, still a bunch of work. The easiest way you could do that is take a picture of each page with your phone, bring up Google Assistant, and tell it to copy the text, and then paste it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've a couple things I've been working through, because my phone definitely can do it. But the latest thing I think is probably just to grab, a similar thing, pictures of each page, going through the entire thing, and then just stitching them all into one big old fatty PDF, and then having Adobe just do it, all of it in one go.
Shout out to Cal4, member of the Dyad Squadron for 28 months. Thank you both for being beacons of light and life. We are all the Republic. We are all the Dyad, Cal. We love everybody in the community, including Nadrex, for being a member of the Dyad Squadron for 24 months. Oh, hey, 2 years already.
Woo!
Woo! 2 years. Thank you so much for your guys' love and support. As always, it's a huge reason why we keep going, why we do this every week, when we can, of course.
Also, a quick update from me. So I am moving apartments. My official move was supposed to be today, but it's not. It's going to be next week. But as some of you guys know, I've been planning to bring back the high ground in some fashion. That will be post move, and it will probably end up just being a live show by myself that allows any guests to join and talk about stuff, but just to kind of go through all what's popping off with Star Wars and things on a weekly basis. But stay tuned.
All right. Well, we are just about a little over an hour, and that is at least the minimum in terms of how much I like to talk about things. If nobody else has any topics in the chat to talk about, any questions we can answer really quickly, we can begin wrapping things up. What else of noteworthy did we encounter this week? Let's talk a little bit about, before we wrap things up, let's just take a couple minutes to talk about the Game Awards.
Okay. Spider-Man got robbed. No, I'm just kidding.
I gotta say, because I haven't played Spider-Man 2, so I wanted to ask you. Not if it got robbed, but because my initial outlook on this is that like everyone played the shit out of Baldur's Gate 3. Hours of playing it. Multiple playthroughs, multiple decisions, multiple deviating storylines, good, evil, you know, trying to experience everything. And then like the hype around Spider-Man 2 was the wait for it. And if it at all, my question to you now is if Spider-Man 2 at all broke ground on anything that came before it, and if it innovated as much as Baldur's Gate did.
So the best part of the Spider-Man series has been its storytelling. That's been the strongest route because it's a different universe than we're used to. So all the characters we love are all different. They have different lives, different backgrounds, and so but similar things happen. And so we don't quite know what's going to happen, even though you sort of know what's going to happen. I actually honestly think that Spider-Man 2 would have done a lot better if it was launched with New Game Plus, and it wasn't.
Oh.
Because myself and I know others wanted to play through it more, but didn't want to do everything again. Didn't want to grind everything again. But overall, Spider-Man is a game for Spider-Man fans. Baldur's Gate 3 is a game that broke ground in a number of ways. You know what I mean? So like Baldur's Gate 3, and I hate saying this as such a big statement, but it's the only one I can find that fits. But it went full Michael Jordan. You know what I mean? Where people who weren't interested in basketball heard Michael Jordan, went to go watch him play. You know, would buy T-shirts with the Bulls on him. You know, he was larger than the sport, and I think Baldur's Gate 3 did that extremely well. I had zero interest, and I didn't follow it, and I didn't play Baldur's Gate 2. I didn't know anything about it. I had no desire to play that game, but you know, one of the Destiny 2 servers I was in was really hyping it up. And then they all stopped playing Destiny 2, and I couldn't get them to play it because they were all playing Divinity again to get ready for it. And then they started playing. I was like, all right, I'll buy it and see what happened. And then when you talk about the culture shift, I don't know how many times, how many people who like don't even play games, you find them thirsting over. I mean, it is the thirstiest game I think I've ever seen, and that's one of the largest places where it excelled, but it out-storytells Spider-Man 2, hands down. I don't think that's even a question. I think that Peter and Miles' stories were extremely well crafted. I think every single character in Baldur's Gate had that same level of love, care, and attention to them. So I don't think you were going to beat any of them on that front. And as far as the gameplay, Spider-Man 2 at some point you do become very aware that you're fighting the same type of enemies over and over again. And while you do that in Baldur's Gate, each interaction is different enough that you don't feel that, not specifically.
Yeah,
I know.
The way I looked at it, I mean, the hype for Spider-Man 2 was real. You know, there was lines outside of GameStop and all kinds of people hyping it up. And as soon as it released, people were jumping on it like crazy. Mm-hmm. But just as soon as the hype had arrived, it had left. Whereas I saw Baldur's Gate being played for months on end by streamers, and like I myself was playing it for months.
I mean, Spider-Man also has the MCU slash Star Wars problem, as being part of a popular franchise already makes people not consume the media as it is, but as they imagine it, as they want it to be, um, versus walking through and experiencing the story as it's being told. And so I think that's a big part of it. But like for one thing, I want to replay it. I'm still waiting on New Game Plus. Um, but I hurried through the story. I played through it very quickly because I was streaming it and I had people trying to spoil things in my chat, and I didn't want that to happen. So I didn't get to enjoy it like I wanted to. And I think that's also a big part of it too. I feel like it came out and people didn't savor it because it was a Marvel game and you wanted to be part of the Marvel conversation online and have to put out content, and so you run through it and then you're like, done.
Yeah.
And as far as action adventure games, honestly, Jedi Survivor is a better game, in my opinion.
Interesting. I mean, I love Jedi Survivor, and it certainly wasn't robbed. I mean, I feel like
No, I don't think it was robbed either. You know, um, I'm just saying that I can't think of a single location other than the voice acting of Yuri Lowenthal that I would have put Spider-Man 2 in the running to win anything. I think it was a great altogether package, but I don't think it exceeded a lot of other games at any single thing.
yeah, I just
Music was great on it. Music was great on it as well.
I think overall, what BG3 has is that it innovated and modernized turn-based combat. It innovated and not modernized. It innovated and made new a very old branching narrative system that was, you know, like, you know, the first thing you think of is Mass Effect style, where, you know, your actions dictate where the story goes. There's multiple branching paths, multiple endings, where in this case there's like multiple branching paths of character story, main story, how the characters you have in the end affect the story in the end, and where you can have permadeath, where some people can die, or you can lose people in your party and they just leave, and that in and of itself affects your story moving forward and what you see. And so, like, there was so much about BG3 that...
Listen, I did what I had to get with Lady Minthara. don't judge me.
But I saw a very interesting TikTok earlier where they had a really good point about Yuri versus Neil, which is Yuri plays himself, sounds like himself, and is acting. It's a good job acting. But Neil played a different character. He played Asterion, and then he plays Heisenberg, not from Breaking Bad, but from another game, where he just completely takes on new characters. And I feel like his performance as Asterion overshadows Yuri's performance of sounding like himself as Peter Parker.
Yeah, and you could say that Yuri did have to stretch a bit for the character with the symbiote and how the symbiote was affecting Peter. But when you play through Baldur's Gate and play through Asterion's character, when you learn that the way that he's acting is largely a defense mechanism for decades and decades of trauma and all this stuff, and you peel back all these layers, and all of that comes through in the performance. You know, there's a lot more depth there. So, like, I also agree with that decision, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Let's catch up with chat before we wrap things up. Batosai the Bat with the Manslayer. Apologies for making you wait through that discussion. Top 3 favorite Star Wars creatures for you guys. Mine are Sand Beast from the Book of Boba Fett, Sondo Aqua Monster from the Phantom Menace, and the Acklay from Attack of the Clones. My top 3 is a Dewback. Famously called the Dewdrop. A Purgle. And Porg.
Porgs are good. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Nexu. I love Nexu. I want a Nexu.
If he could be considered a creature, Nubs.
Well, if we're going that route, then whatever the dinosaur dude with the Gatling gun was in Obi-Wan, he's just a dinosaur on a roof.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. So Nexu, I'll give it to Tauntauns. Those Tauntauns. And that's not just because Sir Tonathan.
Oh my gosh, non sequitur. Me and Cal started watching Twisted Metal on Peacock, and there's this sequence with the thong song, and it just like it's been in my head for the past couple of days. You should watch it also.
I don't know what else I'm gonna pick. I'll just say the little Zillo Beast from that we saw grow in the last season of The Bad Batch. It was so cute.
What's the little guy from Outlaws? Okay,
yeah, axolotl cat dog thing.
That could be one too.
Fractals as well. Boga was a good girl.
Okay, let's catch up with more.
Tell freaking Cody.
Before we wrap things up, Cal says BG3 is so wildly diverse that I adore talking to people about it just to see how they came up with solutions to fights, puzzles, and story moments. And I'm constantly still saying, you could do that?
Yeah, that's true. When Cal told me about the other solution for the druids at the camp, it was like, that's what this location, because I found a weird location, and I'm like, but there's nothing here. Why is there nothing here? It's because I got there at the wrong point in the story. Yeah, it was super cool.
Nadrak says Spider-Man 2 should have won the 19 Inches of Venom award.
And what do they win?
BG3 truly changed what it means to be a video game. It's one of those games where you're almost sad when you're done with it because you don't know when something like it will come around again. I feel like Larian is in a good position to continue it or build upon what they've established. Now, I will preface it by saying, like, if another Baldur's Gate 4 happens and it's largely like Baldur's Gate 3 but with a really great story, does that deserve GOTY? Probably not. We'll have to see. But again, just like Spider-Man 2 is building upon Spider-Man, if it's the same system with a different story, it's not as groundbreaking as before. So I wouldn't be like, oh, BG4 for sure. But could it do something groundbreaking again? Yes. But as pertaining to what Cal said, it's an iteration of the game that truly changed the landscape. and so that's why it deserved the goatee.
I don't think any game that gets started anytime soon, they don't at some point say, look at what they were able to accomplish with their storytelling. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Nedrick says, a Fallout game with the BG3 dynamics where people can actually die. There's a million ways around problems, and almost every outcome has story around it. Would be my game of all time. I mean, BG3 is actually on my list for GOAT games, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I never thought
now,
at this point in my life I would be able to add another great GOAT to the list.
What might be is the next Cyberpunk game. I'm just going to throw that out there. Because if they take all the lessons that they've learned from this one, like if Cyberpunk 2077 as it is now came out when Cyberpunk came out, that would have been game of the year.
Yeah. Still waiting on Elder Scrolls 6, man.
We got Elder Scrolls 6 coming out. We got new Mass Effect coming out. We got new Dragon Age.
Didn't they have Dragon Age Day recently?
Yeah, it was like 3 days ago, something like that.
Let's see here. After Book of Boba Fett, I want a young Rancor to bond with.
That would be cool.
I need a fine ass Twi'lek to bond with. Psycho Shinobi says, "Is it bad that I want a Borg gullet?" Yes.
You've been watching too much anime.
Damn it, the thong song is back in my head. She had dumps like a truck. Thighs like what?
Baby shake your butt. Let's see it again. See, that's my secret. Thong song is always in my head.
Dyson said, I feel bad for Jedi Survivor, such a great game, but so many others as well. I mean, yeah, it's... So, I mean, I think this is largely the issue with a lot of people saying Spider-Man 2 was robbed. Like, I don't think anybody is taking away from how great of a game they thought it was, but the Game Awards isn't about your favorite game. It's about, like, what is truly, you know, merited in terms of what they accomplished, what they delivered, and how much of it was noteworthy. And you know,
so I love the movie Winter Soldier, for instance. One of the top Marvel movies. I wouldn't think that would win any award of movie of the year. You know what I mean? I feel like Spider-Man 2 is in that same boat, where it is what it is because of, you know, it's Marvel tie-ins. But I know that there's people who don't play many games, but will buy a system just to play that game. And for those people, I'm sure, why didn't it win? There's so much stuff out there. You know what I mean? Like, this is the year, like Hogwarts Legacy came out this year as well. Like, we've forgotten so much of what has come out this year. That's how good of a year it is.
Do you think the future of Star Wars is in danger with this narrative that it's dead? I was on a stream of EU absolutists. They don't even consider the Clone Wars canon. Oh, really? Wow. Do they have a chance to win? I mean,
no. That's always been a thing. Here's the thing. So.
Oh, there's
the Clone Wars.
Really quickly from Batosai. They said Disney is bleeding money, but they have to double down, and they think it's not working because they can't control people still consuming somehow Disney, even the new Essential Legends.
It's wishful thinking. I mean, it's people not Disney is such a large company that you can't look at Disney stock being down and being like, that's because people didn't like Ahsoka. You know what I mean? That's not a thing. That's not at all a thing. Those EU purists, they've always hated Clone Wars. They've always hated Dave Filoni because Dave Filoni has crapped all over the EU throughout the entire Clone Wars. You're just hearing about them now more because as time goes on, it's becoming more popular to hate on Dave Filoni. Okay. But yeah, for a lot of people, they grew up with let's see. Like I've tried to be a part of most Star Wars communities as long as they're not super toxic. So I know a lot of these people. Some of them I follow. Like I enjoy Sheev Talks. Now, he's actually very intelligent, even though I disagree with a lot of his takes. I love the reasoning that he shows and stuff in him. But yeah, a lot of the storytelling problems that people will quote in the sequels all exist in the Clone Wars, and in a lot of cases, it's worse. But because of nostalgia, no one really bats an eye, and so I think it's fascinating. I don't think Star Wars is dead by any means, though. As long as those crowds always consume everything Star Wars when it comes out, Star Wars is fine. Disney they don't even have to consider those people because they'll watch it anyways.
Yeah. And in terms of Disney bleeding money, they are, because they have so much money. They don't know what to do with. It's literally bleeding out of their purses. Like, if like a simple Google search shows that Disney's total revenue for 2023 was $32.6 billion. That's 16% increase over last year. And just in the last quarter, ending in September 30, they recorded a 63% increase of $264 million. So Disney is not dying. They're not bleeding money, or in how they're purportedly using the term bleeding money. They're not in the red. They're hugely profitable. And I think this largely comes down to like people seeing things as flops, and you know, Disney has come out and said that Disney Plus is losing them money, which is why they're going to shut it down and combine Hulu and Disney Plus into one package. That's still not like bleeding money. Like a company like let's say 2023 Disney's revenue was $32 billion. Let's say Disney Plus operating expenditures cost them $2 billion. They lost money, yes, but that's still $30 billion in profit. So
I would also like to add, most streaming services operate at a loss. Netflix doesn't make money. You know, Hulu's profitable because of ads, and I think that's why they want to put ads all over everything. But the issue is, a lot of the people you're seeing report these things don't know anything about business, and they're always going to stop. They aren't looking for the answers to the questions. They're looking for what answer supports the narrative that they've already crafted. So if you look at the Marvels as a flop, they'll come to a conclusion, which, by the way, it not making as much money could be a really interesting conversation if we're trying to explore why that is. But again, like we said before, you know, Mission Impossible technically flopped. So did Fast and Furious. So did Shazam. So did Blue Beetle. So that all major studios, all major franchises, all flopped. The only ones that didn't, like Barbie, Oppenheimer. Um, what year did Mario come out?
Last year.
Was that this year?
Last year.
That was last year. Okay. Um, but all things that had incredible marketing behind them. I don't know. I think we keep trying to judge things by odd standards to support a specific narrative without looking at, like, okay, how did the movie industry as a whole do? How did, like, I know 2,000 theaters like shut down and then never came back after COVID. Yeah, I don't know. I think there's a lot more things to consider.
Yeah.
Could be an interesting conversation,
And
as long as we're not just stopping.
There's also a conversation to be had about what constitutes a flop, because the Marvels, even though it didn't make $1 billion, it still made more than its budget. So it was a profitable movie, just not grossly profitable. Like, it's not $1 billion showing, but they made their money back and then some. So it's not necessarily a complete and utter loss. Again, recording any kind of increase in revenue year over year is a good thing for a company. Let's see here.
What's your favorite movie, Pep?
What's my favorite movie of all time?
Mm-hmm.
Shawshank Redemption.
Flop.
How much did it make at the box office?
I'd have to look it up, but like it was notoriously a massive flop of a film.
I was too young for it, but I did. I watched it on syndication.
No.
Let's see here. The host even said he has a 5-year-old cousin who likes Star Wars, Grogu, and that he bites his tongue to tell him that he can't. He seemed really bothered. Can't believe that to be that extreme. I mean, wow. It's just wow.
All right, so Shawshank Redemption, in its theatrical run, made $16 million, and its budget was $25 million.
God. Come on, man. That has freaking Morgan Freeman in it.
Because whether a movie is a flop or not is not relevant to the conversation. And you can ask the same people. Last Jedi made over $1 billion. It's like, I think it's still in the top 50 most profitable movies of all time, yet they still hate it. So you gotta pick. Is it, if it flops, is it bad? And if it doesn't flop, it's good? Like, I don't know, choose.
It can also be perceived that one major part of the reason why these products flopping can be a sign of financial state of society nowadays, not the quality of their product, which is another extenuating factor. I mean, we had the strike,
and that's why I think it's an interesting conversation. Yeah, sorry, keep going.
No, that was my main point. Like something that directly impacted the success of Marvels. Is very much so the strike. Like, there was no promotion. There was no press junket whatsoever for this movie, and the only reason I knew it was out is because I follow it religiously. And I was like, when I asked my brother, "Do you want to see the Marvels?" I'm like, "Is that out?" I'm like, "Yeah." So, like, not a lot of people, even, like the general movie going population was just not. It was inundated by the strike, and so.
I mean, next question is part of Barbie and Oppenheimer's success because of the strike? Because those were the last films to come out pre-strike. Yeah. They were literally live at a press junket when the strike ended or started, and they had to walk off. But they were like the last thing before the movies came out. Do you think people not knowing stuff was coming out would benefited the other movies? Also, my groceries cost twice as much as they did previously.
Dude,
it's insane.
Do you remember when small ass cheeseburger at McDonald's was 80 cents.
Oh yeah.
Do you remember when it was $1.20?
It was 89 cents.
Do you remember when it was $1.20? Do you remember when there was a freaking dollar menu? Now, a small cheeseburger at McDonald's, which is supposed to be everyone's most accessible fast food, cheap option, a small cheeseburger is like $2.40.
Yeah. And so when you have, that where, like I said, groceries, just cost of living and stuff in general has gone up, that's going to cut out movies. That's going to cut out movies that you would bring a family to. If you're a family of 5 and you try to go out to the movies and you're paying like $15 a ticket.
Yeah.
God damn, that's expensive,
Which is why I feel really horrible that I have a list and I do not watch 3 movies a week. Like, I really need to take advantage of that perk. Because the only way this is when I like decided to upgrade. The only way I'll ever justify paying the $25 a month is if I see hundreds of dollars worth of movies every month. So it's worth the price. It's worth the price of admission. It really is. If you go see 3 movies a week. Yeah, as Cal says, it's $2.39 over there. But just like Psycho Shinobi has been saying, just like Batosai and everybody else in chat is saying, and just like Choco said just now, like the price of living is exorbitant these days, and people make very real choices to see a movie. Whereas 10 years ago, people were like, let's go see a movie. Yeah, sure. Couple dollars.
I have watched more random stuff on Netflix and streaming services than I've ever have before, out of convenience. You know what I mean? Like, we would be going out to the movie, but like, no, now this is easier, or now things come a lot quicker to streaming.
Yeah.
I think I don't think the movie industry will ever bounce back to what it was.
Yeah.
Personally.
The last thing I'll say on this matter, since we're approaching the tail end of this episode, is I traditionally get nachos and cheese and a hot dog at the movies. It is tradition. I always get that. Now, if I look at my receipt and I see how much that hot dog costs, do I visibly guffaw? Yes. Because what is tradition now costs me $23. I am paying $12 for a hot dog. Jesus.
Yeah. No, and that's the real cost of them. And
that's
you're
not
like,
the real cost of them. It's a hot dog is
the
hot dog is
at
most
like
$1 to make.
You could get a pack of hot dogs and a pack of buns and toppings and still make it out with less. Now it's wild.
DePaul says, I'm a popcorn and drink with M&M's kind of guy, and sometimes I like pretzel bites with cheese. But, you go to the movies and spend $15 on a ticket, and you get like some snacks that'll end up upwards of $30-$40, and you're like, God damn.
I mean, I feel like DePaul and I are cut from the same cloth. He ain't buying M&Ms there at the movie theater. Come on, we know that. But yeah, no, that's my go-to. It's peanut M&Ms. You get your butter popcorn, and you dump your M&Ms in there, and so it's mostly salty, and then you get a little nugget of sweet. It's so good.
That sounds like pineapple on pizza.
And then the hard shell means it's not gonna melt in there. But like, yeah, every now and then you're just gonna Get a nugget of something special.
I like that idea a lot because I like to put salt on my chocolates. But yeah, for some reason I've just never been a candy person during a movie. It's always been popcorn or nachos and like a hot dog. Sometimes I'll get chicken fingers if I haven't eaten that day, but like it's always been kind of like Whole Foods and no candy. But it's interesting. I want to try that now.
I love Dippin' Dots. Haven't had them in like 10 years because they're so freaking expensive and you can only get them at the movie theater. Movie theater and like at a water park. And I'm like, I'm not in either place enough, so I guess I just will never have them again.
It's such an interesting mouthfeel, though, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, listen, the cost of things is killing us. You know what I mean? I never thought I would pay $12 for a hot dog, but I do out of tradition. And the last thing we'll answer is Andre on TikTok. What do you think will be the first project that will have Dave's new job as an influencer, or not as an influencer? Will have Dave's new job as an influence?
Ahsoka, we had it.
Yeah. But speaking more towards his CCO position, I think New Jedi Order. Whichever comes first, Dawn, Mandalorian. Well, the Mandalorian movie he's serving as director, so it's not so much as that his influence is over the creative and the narrative of it, but he's like writing and directing that movie. So whichever comes first, Dawn of the Jedi or New Jedi Order, this is realistically what he's going to serve as CCO for. But he has his hands in all of the projects now as CCO, like from a developmental standpoint.
Yeah.
You can smuggle an entire 8-pack of dogs with the works for $12. Okay, well, just another last thing I'll say on that. My favorite hot dogs to get, which is the hot dogs that Pink's Hot Dogs uses, it's called Hoffy. And you can get a 10-pack or a 20-pack of... No, you can get a 20-pack of Hoffy hot dogs at Albertsons for $10. That's 20 hot dogs. Add to that like a $6 ballpark buns. For $16, you have 20 hot dogs. Did you look up Hoffy? I recommend everyone get Hoffy hot dogs. No ballpark, no Nathan's, no nothing. Get Hoffy.
I'll have to check them out next time. I haven't eaten the regular hot dogs in a minute, except for at Costco. But I used to go for. Okay, yeah, I used to go for Hebrew National. That was always my go-to.
If I do not get Hoffy, it's either Nathan's or Hebrew National. But like, what's it? Johnsonville? Oh, gross.
I thought I hated hot dogs growing up. That's why. We just kept getting like the garbage. Like these other brands are making hot dogs on purpose. The other ones make it as a byproduct of the stuff that they make.
Yeah. DePaul says Casper hot dogs or Costco hot dogs. I haven't had Casper, but again, like my favorite hot dogs of all time is from Pink's. They use Hoffy, and I love those hot dogs.
I haven't been to Pink's in a while. I need to come back.
Well, I mean, just in general.
I'm coming up.
I'm coming up. You guys should try Vegemite. I have, and no more. Never will ever again.
Who's saying that? Is that Charles? Nedrix, okay. I'll try Vegemite. I don't think I ever have.
Well, that's the thing. If you've never had it, you will try it. But once you try it, no more.
Okay. Is it like poi? Or you're like, why?
It's literally like... I can't speak for everybody, but it's literally like this face afterwards. You're like... Yeah, why? Why is Vegemite? Never had a pink hot dog. Never ever even heard of it before now. Oh my gosh, Pink's is like huge in LA. I mean, it's one of those. It's a tourist spot. It's where a lot of actors go.
Act like a tourist.
Act like a tourist, fool.
I'm also excited to come back up there so I can find the Koji barbecue truck. I need to see if it still holds up. Because, like, I'm old school Koji from like 2008. Yeah. No, you just had to like follow them. Like Twitter was brand new, but that's the only way you could find them is,
I
you
was
go
hoping,
to some.
I was hoping Koji would be at Anaheim celebration.
I mean, yeah.
Did you happen to eat Vegemite like it was chocolate on a spoon? Because it's not. Yes. It was in a small kind of like baby food size jar. But I'm not trying it in like a bar form either, dude. Because that stuff will like linger on your teeth. We'll
I'm going to try it and figure out how it's meant to be tried, and maybe we'll do a video on it. Nedrex, send us some. Because I mean, this is a similar conversation that I've had about spam.
Oh,
and you're like,
great.
but if you know what you're doing, spam is great.
Spam's great. Yeah, Nedrix, we'll do it for content. If you want to send us the proper Vegemite and instructions on how to do it, then for sure. But as it stands, as I've tasted it, it is horrible to me. It's like if you can imagine Nutella that's gone. That's off. Oh, Nedrex, also if you find yourself coming to DiadCon in next year in April, you can also bring it then. Dang. Y'all chose the, well, I guess it's not the worst time, but y'all chose a grand of a time to be active. So I'm going to take Batosai's last question. This is the last question we'll take, and then we'll wrap things up. Do you think Ben Solo will or should return in potential episode 9, 10, and 11? My quick answer to that is should, but not in 9, 10, 11. Because I don't like trilogy formats. I don't think they should do not 9, 10, 10, 11, 12. I don't think they should do 10, 11, 12. I think it should be the New Jedi Order. And Ben, for all intents and purposes, being connected to Rey, should return in some way, shape, or form. Possibly as a ghost, yes, but I don't think he should be a large part of the story. And whatever goes from there, goes from there. I mean, it's, I don't want it to be another trilogy. I want them to make the story of New Jedi Order and what makes sense as a sequel, going forward, and threequel and quadpole, whatever it is, quackle, whatever. However,
yeah, I can agree with that. I think, being forced to do a trilogy, and no one has said it was a trilogy, right? That report is nowhere, but is a bad choice because again, lately it feels like it forces people not to interact with the media as is, but as they hope future of it will be,
Great example
but
is like the sentence when the first one comes out, the sentence goes, "Oh, I wonder how this is going to affect 2 and 3."
Yeah. the discussion of, man, we were robbed because I thought the Knights of Ren were going to play a bigger role. And you're like, why did you think that? That's weird. Stuff like that. Anyways, I think he should come back, but I think he doesn't come back for anyone else. I think they continue to have what is like their forced Skype conversations, only he's not anywhere. And so they're still able to talk to each other. And it just makes her character tragic after finding like a soulmate and then but not ever being able to truly connect with them. And then also you can't date after that. So I think that could be interesting. But again, I'm hoping to see a world where we're seeing Rey as a master and the story is about the students.
As you said earlier, we need more students. We need more people, more stories centered around the young people learning. Because one of the best things about the High Republic, and I'm going to make a video on this because some people are saying the High Republic is flopping or failing. I'm not even gonna go into detail. I'm just gonna show all of my videos of the High Republic panels at Celebration being fire and filled to the brim with fans. But yeah, to Psycho Shinobi's point, as we close things out, some traditions don't need to be upheld. Like trilogies, a great story can be told in 1 or 2 or even more than 3. This is where I land on Star Wars or just movies in the Star Wars universe doing what the MCU did. And that's not to say I don't want Star Wars, or that is to say I don't want Star Wars to copy MCU. What I want them to do is tell a story, and if it is an epic story of a potential of a saga, it needs to be told in as many movies as it takes to be a saga. And however you feel about the MCU, it largely was a success with all of the movies leading up to Endgame. You wouldn't have gotten that in a trilogy.
Well, do you remember all the other trilogies that, like, the last movie of the trilogy was actually a part 1 and part 2? And you're like, that's because it's not a trilogy. It was 4 movies, okay? Like, why are you lying to me? Why are you lying to yourself? That someone decided somewhere that trilogy is the best way. And you're like, it's a trilogy. Just the last one is 2 different movies, but they're both the same movie. You're like, no.
I mean, like, the best example of this is the Fast saga. It was the Fast and Furious trilogy. But as soon as they wanted to make more movies, and as soon as Vin Diesel said there's more story to tell, it became the Fast saga. And so, like, in general, starting out as a trilogy, you're promising yourself you're going to tell this story in 6 hours minimum. And that's not the way to do things. But with that being said, I want to shout out everyone in the YouTube chat and the TikTok chat for hanging around and tuning into this episode of Dyad and the Force. We've had a wonderful conversation with everyone, talking about a whole slew of topics. Logan Singleton, thank you for joining at the last minute. We're just wrapping things up here. We talked about a lot of different things. But for the last couple of minutes, we've been talking about, exiting the trilogy strategy and moving towards an MCU model. Not necessarily MCU, I have to make that clear, but the model of movies and telling a story. No matter how long it takes, or no matter how short it takes. I have to make that clear because sometimes there's just one movie.
Yeah.
So with that said, shout out to everyone in the chat. Choco, any final thoughts, any final words?
No, just in agreement. I haven't seen The Hobbit yet, but from my understanding, it was too many movies and it didn't need to be. But yeah, thanks for everyone for joining the chat. I've been, locked away for the entire week, and so it was nice to chill with y'all. And check out Cal4, who will be streaming after this over on Twitch TV /Cal4.
Yes, and if you need more conversation, more intellectual conversation, also check out One with the Films. They are either live now or will be live soon, but most likely live now. But that'll do it for this episode of Dyad in the Force 150. Thank you guys once again for hanging around and chatting with us and making this conversation just as great as usual. But that is the end. On to the next one.
For Line for Life.
We are all the Dyad.
And may the Force be with you. Always.